probably well, they should have been sent to the printer by Friday.
Okay. So they're
1, 2, 3, 4. right, well, good evening. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and this is Carbon Matters live streaming. Thank you for joining me this Thursday, 28 September. A special Carbon Matters live streaming this evening. In just a few minutes, we're going to bring on Sam Lux, Carbon County candidate for the Office of Controller. We're going to spend about the next hour speaking to Sam about his candidacy for the important role of county controller. But first and foremost, I want to thank you once again for joining me, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, on Carbon Matters live streaming. Going to be a little different this particular episode. You know, normally those who follow regularly know that we start out reviewing the highlights, actions, activities of county government, municipalities, and often the school districts also. Kind of talk through those significant events that have taken place, and then bring on our guests. But this evening, I wanted to focus the entire time on Sam and his candidacy, to give him the opportunity to have a conversation with me, with you, with the residents, with the voters of Carbon County. A couple months prior to the primary, right after candidates had the opportunity from the major parties to file their nomination petitions, I did personally write to each county candidate who was running for the first time, and offered them the opportunity to have the same conversation that I'm having with Sam tonight. So it's not simply that this was an opportunity only afforded to Sam. Every first-time candidate who was running in the primary did have the opportunity at some time to go ahead and have this conversation. So an equal opportunity provider here on Carbon Matters. I do always want to highlight, hey, after I come from the gym at St. Luke's in the morning, you know, up behind me, above me, right, I'm using Duke Cannon soap. And then Thursday mornings, as I'm getting ready to go to the commissioners meeting, right, we all like to put on a little cologne for those Carbon County commissioners meetings. Well, I use Solid cologne, and I'm using Duke Cannon bourbon cologne. So take a look at Duke Cannon. What a great soap. And I always want to thank Mary Ann Llewellyn to introducing me to Duke Cannon soap about 4.5 years ago now. So thank you to Mary Ann. Also, as I'm sitting here reading my newspaper in the morning, before getting Molly up, getting her ready, and then heading off to the admin building, I'm drinking my Cafe Ruiz coffee, and I've been drinking that since about probably goes to the mid 80s or so with Cafe Ruiz. So always enjoying my fresh cup of Ruiz coffee. So again, what I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead, we're going to broaden the aperture of the camera here. We're going to bring Sam on, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And lastly, one more time, I want to welcome you to Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and I'm joined with Sam Lux. How you doing,
Good.
Sam?
How are you, Chris? Thank you for having me on.
No, it's going to be a great opportunity, one, for me to get to know you better, and also for the residents and those who are tuning in now, be it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, about 15 to 20 different Facebook groups that we're pushing this to. It's their opportunity to get to know you.
Absolutely.
All right. So I want to jump right into it, Sam, and thank you first and foremost for taking the opportunity to bring yourself here to really face some straightforward questions. Sam and I spent about 5 or 10 minutes just getting comfortable here about a half hour or so ago. I kind of reviewed the general topics that we're going to discuss, but I'm going to tell you, I'm a strong supporter of Sam Lutz, having gotten to know him over the past few months. So I think he's going to be well prepared to answer these questions based upon my interactions with him and have been observing him as he's been going through his candidacy for county controller. But what I want to start out, Sam, is kind of get to know you a little bit better. Kind of those strange things that maybe are customary in your life. What's your morning routine like right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So currently I'm teaching at the Jim Thorpe Area High
All
School.
right.
So my mornings start out, typically wake up around 5:30.
Yeah.
And I like to kind of ease into the day. So one of my favorite things to do, I get to have coffee every morning.
Yeah.
With my partner Jen.
Okay.
And we wake up and we spend the first hour together.
All right.
Drinking coffee, talking, and then we typically will listen to a news podcast. So typically we marketplace from NPR.
Okay.
But really just kind of listen to just the quick kind of hit highlights of the day. And then get started from there, have breakfast, and then I'm out the door and getting over to the high school to start.
Okay. So what are you teaching at the high school right
So I'm actually in the math department.
In the math department.
I've been filling in. I'm a long-term sub there.
Right.
So filling in for multiple different classes, but I've been doing the geometry, algebra classes, and business math classes over there. Where they need me.
Okay. Well, you mentioned you kind of start your day with gathering of some general kind of national level information, right?
Absolutely.
If we're talking NPR and any other resource individuals use, it sounds like you're. What do you do for local news?
Yeah. Times News.
Yeah.
I love
All
the
right.
Times News. I
All
think
right.
we're blessed to have the Times News in our area.
Yeah.
But typically I actually catch the Times News in the evening when I come home, right?
Okay,
They're delivering
sure.
the paper around 1. So by the time I'm coming home and getting back to the house, that's really when I sit down and take a look through the Times News.
Okay.
So somehow in the morning, I think if there was something to access it more effectively in the morning, I'd be all in.
Right.
If someone knows of anything, just let me know, because I think I'd prefer to digest local news as opposed to national news. But because national news can be a little bit overwhelming and a little bit outside of our control. So definitely, if anyone's got any recommendations for how to start your day with local news, I'm all ears.
I think it's really tough. I mean, we have WMGH, WLSH. I haven't listened to them in about 5 years. They have changed significantly. Yeah. I did some interviews up there when I was running for office. But to find true local news that is Carbon County focused, the fact is, for the majority of the county, you're only going to get it in the Times News. The northern tier, so Lehigh, Luzanne, Tresco, Banks Township, that area, the standard speaker is about where you're going to get that information. Well, tell me a little bit about growing up. Where were you born, raised?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm born and raised in Carbon County.
All right.
I love being from Carbon County.
Yeah.
My family on my mom's side has been from Carbon County for a long time. One of my favorite things to do is drive by my great grandparents' house in Weissport. It's the tiny one there, right across from the park. If you know which one I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I grew up. I was born and raised in Jim Thorpe, so right there on Broadway.
Okay.
And it's changed a lot since even I was a kid. My dad owns the 5 and 10.
Okay.
And we grew up right up the street, right by the Immaculate Conception Church.
Oh, okay. So just above the church, Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
All right.
So I spent a lot of my time on Broadway, and that's what.
Yeah. So you grew up in a small town.
Yep.
Up until the time I think we're going to talk about it. You did leave the area for a little while, but as you were being raised here, what are some of the traits and qualities that you possess today that had their formation in Jim Thorpe in Carbon County?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm really proud to be from here.
Yeah.
I know this is the podcast, but I truly am. I think some of the traits that I see in a lot of the people that are from here that I've grown to love, there's just such a strong sense of community. I think there's a strong sense of humility from the people from Carbon County, and just a strong work ethic. I think people from Carbon County are really proud to be from here, and they've seen tough times, and they've stuck them out. They didn't run. They didn't, get out of town when the economy took that dip after coal. And I think that really made the people who stayed here really enduring and tough, and to be able to get through those hard times. So I think I'm as proud as anyone to be from here.
Right. So talk a little bit about maybe the influence of your mom, dad, other family members, grandparents had on the formation of Sam Lux into the adult he is today, in the person he is today.
Absolutely, man. I have to thank my parents and my grandparents. They're just such huge parts of my life, and I think I've picked up. I'd like to think I picked up the best traits from both of them, but you pick up tons of traits from your parents. But I think from my mom, I think she's such a hardworking woman, and she's always ready to go out and help anybody in the community.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows my mom she's the first person to sign up for the first volunteering event. Yeah. And a lot of times she'll be the last one there. So I've always just been impressed about how committed she is to not just, improving her life and the people close to her, but improving the community as a whole. And I think that really comes from her parents. So like my grandmother and my grandfather, Mary and Richard Auchenhouse, they grew up on top of Flagstaff, and they're well known for adopting 18 kids and fostering many more than that, and just kind of finding people who needed help and being that person to be there for them. And so I think I hope to pick up some of that from her and from them, that caring for other people. And then I think the strong qualities of my dad that I hope to carry on and keep are his patience. He's always someone who's willing to listen and understand where you're coming from before making any sort of judgment. He doesn't quick to think that he understands what's going on. He waits to hear you and hear you out. And I think that sort of patience and understanding and way of thinking through things is something that I try to approach in everything that I do as well.
So has your family owned the 5 and 10 throughout your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad actually bought the 5 and 10. So my parents actually met at the 5 and 10. Yeah. So I think my dad, and I could be wrong with this, I bought the 5 and 10 maybe 4 or 5 years before I was born.
Okay.
Maybe 3-4 years before I was born. I always forget, but so somewhere around that. So I'm born and raised here.
All right, because I'm going to tie that back a little bit later because of the exposure to a business environment. Seems to have again, we tend to be products of our environment and influenced by it. And I want to come back to that a little bit later to see if as you were looking at how you were going to take your career forward, if you can connect that to the 5 and 10 and growing up in that environment.
Absolutely.
So tell me about let's jump ahead to your high school years.
Absolutely.
What do you remember? What was significant to you in your high school years? Who was impactful in your high school years?
That's a great question. I think there's plenty of people who, impact you throughout your life. Obviously, your family, like we kind of hit on already. But outside the family, I forgot to shout out to my brothers. So in high school, my older brother was a huge influence on me. Just having someone who was going through it 2 years before you makes a big difference. You get to learn. So thank you, Brandon, for kind of figuring things out for me, and I get to kind of learn and refine. I tell my experience behind him. So he had a huge impact.
Okay.
He wanted to play basketball. I played basketball. He wanted to play tennis. I wanted to play tennis. So a lot of the things and hobbies I got into were because of him. So he had a huge impact throughout that experience. But then I was very blessed to have a really great core group of friends. A few of them on the top of my head. I'm not sure they're listening. Talon Fogel and Patrick Stevens. James Denny, but also Connor Herman was a huge friend of mine growing up, and still definitely keep in touch with all of them. And then just having them to go through all the events, all the high school stuff, just made a huge difference. So,
talk to me about any particular coach. You mentioned sports, so I'm assuming you played high school sports.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what sport did you play?
I played 3. So I ran cross country. So Drew Benyo was a huge influence. He was a staple of the cross country team forever. And just I think you pick up little things that you remember. But the one thing I remember from Coach Benyo is you can run, you can walk, you can crawl, but you can never give in.
Right.
So I always kind of take that approach. Right. You can change your approach you can do things, you can slow down, but you can't give up.
Right.
So that's something I always picked up from him. And then Brian Carroll was
Okay.
the basketball coach.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And he,
Well, I'm very good.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I don't have the picture here. It's in my office
Yeah.
of Brendan and I down
yeah.
at his Ranger School graduation in September of last year and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Brian was a really great guy, and I'll never
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
when I was about to quit playing basketball.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was what I wanted to do, and just all the time commitment, because
Yeah.
it's a lot. Your school and everything, and you're 16, 17, you're not sure what you want to do. And I forget, he just gave me a call and was like, hey, you can do what you want to do, but you've got a lot of talent at this. I don't think you should quit just because it's hard right now.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely thankful that I did not. And
Right.
if he didn't make that call, I don't know what I would have done. So you definitely remember that. And then the last one, who's someone I still talk to today, is Norb Leinhart.
Oh, sure, of course.
And Norb is an icon when it comes to tennis in
Yeah.
Carbon County.
Yep.
But really, I think
But now it's pickleball. He's a pickleball legend. I think
little
he's
bit,
developing
a little
into.
bit,
All right.
a little bit. I don't want to put that on him. I think he still prefers tennis. I hope so,
all right.
anyway.
Yeah.
But he, I think it's really understated how much he gave back to the community, how much time he put in to growing a sport that's not easy
Yeah.
to learn, or just kind of has the image of being not something that is easily accessible. And
Yeah.
all the work that he put in to make it accessible
Yeah.
to our community is just admirable, and I think that's something that I've wanted to do all of my life in some form of fashion, not just around tennis, but to be able to make things more accessible, make things better for people in our community. And so, so I think you're right. And it's hard. I know I'm forgetting people.
I did ask you. Don't want you to have to mention. Right. No, that's great. Obviously, we all have individuals who have played a positive role in our lives, and coaches, teachers, family members. I think we all have them. And thank you for mentioning Norb. The last couple of years of high school, I hung out with Norb at Memorial Park. Matter of fact, my neighbor Joe, another one who hung out with Norb as we finished our high school days. Hey, if you're just joining, I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich. This is Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm joined by Sam Lux. Sam is the candidate for Carbon County Controller. And this evening on Carbon Matters, I'm spending about an hour talking to Sam about who he is as a person, about his candidacy, and about that which he's going to bring to the position once elected, or when elected, if elected, to controller of Carbon County. So thank you for tuning in to Carbon Matters live streaming. It's so great to have you joining us here this evening. And again, we're just rolling into some of the personal stuff, the background of Sam and his life. Sam, so you graduated from high school. Well, let me jump. Did you have a specific quote unquote academic scholarly focus in high school? Was there something you were tracking towards?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No, I think like a lot of kids, right? It's hard to know when you're 16, 17 what's your calling, or what will be meaningful for you. I know I've always liked to learn and understand things.
Yeah.
So I think that was the approach, but I think not knowing what I wanted to do is actually how I ended up at Westchester.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to go to a university that was going to cost a whole bunch of money if I
Yeah.
didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'll never forget, I give other people this advice, but I got it originally from my dad. And it was just, it's not where you go, it's what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And so, it's, you think, you can spend all this money, but they're not going to spoon feed you into being a better person. You've got to put the work into being a better person.
Yep.
And any university you go to, they're going to have great resources.
Yeah.
Pretty, for the most part. They're going to have great resources.
Across the board.
They're going to have the stuff for you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then I kind of factor all those things in. I still wanted to get away a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just kind of figured, okay, this is affordable, and this is great access for me to learn and see what the next step is for myself.
So you went to Westchester, and again, I'll always throw in some personal notes here. I believe we have a school board member whose daughter has just recently started. I think she was somewhere else, but she switched over to Westchester this fall term, if I recall correctly.
Best of the Pennsylvania State schools, in my opinion.
Really? Yeah.
Unbiased.
All right. Well, my wife and I were Penn State grads, so kind of definitely a lean towards the Nittany Lion to include its academics out there. What did you study in Westchester?
So I graduated from Westchester with a degree in finance.
Okay.
I also minored in Arabic, but
okay. Salam alaikum.
Yeah, alaikum salam. Not that I can speak fluent Arabic or anything, but it's just something that was very topical as I was going through school. The Arab Spring was happening, and just something I wanted to understand and get a better sense of. And then also I was fortunate while I was in school, I spent 3-4 months in Egypt.
Okay, yeah.
And that experience, just completely different culture.
Oh, absolutely.
And just, what you think is one thing, or you think of one way, and it really, opened my eyes to see the world in a different way and see the perspective. But the one thing that I think is relevant to, why I'm running to help our county government is you could just see how disorganized and in functional disarray their entire government was, and what the impact that had onto just the entire country. You could see the economic differences. You could see the low quality of life in a lot of aspects. And so I think just seeing that kind of opened my eyes to the importance of functional economic systems. And so I think that really when I came back to Westchester, that was where my mind went, and I started thinking, what do I want to do? And I thought about a political science major, but I thought that's just too kind of broad. And I just never wanted to be like a government bureaucrat or anything. So I wanted to have a specific skill.
And I don't take offense to that, because that's what I studied basically in one form or fashion or another.
I mean, it was very and it's nothing wrong with political science.
No, that's good.
And then so just thinking through things and thinking how I like to think about things at a high level and understand them, I realized everything that every organization, private sector, public sector, it comes down to where's the money going, how is the money being able to help them provide the resources that they're doing. And so really understanding the money aspect of it, I could get exposed to lots of different jobs, positions, things to do. So that's sort of, but I was 20, 21, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just sort of kind of following a vague direction. But
all of a sudden, though, you're a senior. You're at least in your senior year, and you start thinking about, and I'm going to assume you graduated in the spring semester. So you're starting to think about, I'm going to have to get a job, so. What direction did you go job wise, and where did you land?
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of college, I started applying to some stuff, and I was having some interviews, but I wasn't sure. And then I actually got on the Appalachian Trail with one of my really close friends, James Boyle, who's someone I should have called out earlier. But he, we're hiking the Appalachian Trail. We're about 100 miles in. We get to a stop. I get a call, and there's.
I'm sorry. Did you start north or south?
We started at Hawk Mountain.
Oh, so, really? Okay.
So it started turning this thing where we're just like, you want to go hiking? And we're like, all right, let's get started. And it was like, what's the most efficient way? We're like, we don't need to do the whole thing.
Right.
Let's just get on and see how far we can make it.
And did you start heading south?
We started heading south.
Okay.
So we made it 100 miles. But then when I got the call, they wanted me to start the following week. And I made the decision to start at JP Morgan, which ended up being a pretty good decision. I mean, part of me still wishes I would have stayed in the trail and saw it out. But the experience at JP Morgan, career-wise, was just very enlightening. I mean, it's a huge company. So there's lots of different avenues. But with that, there's a lot of brilliant people, and a lot of great resources to learn about business and how to make things effective and efficient. So it was really interesting starting there. I worked in their operations department. So the easiest way I can say it without getting kind of too technical and boring is how to make a process in an office as efficient as possible. And cutting out all the middle pieces that cost the money, right? And so you go around and say, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this, right?
Sounds like Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
right,
It's a little bit of that,
yeah,
exactly.
but,
Like,
you know,
operational efficiency.
really, yep.
So we did a little bit of that.
That's great.
But
That's something so much that government needs, and I will tell you something that Carbon County government needs. Our processes are extremely inefficient, and unfortunately, some of them therefore become less than fully effective.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. And then I think if you can't answer the question why you're doing it or why this information is important, you got to figure out a way to get rid of it because it's just an extra thing that you're carrying around or you're paying somebody to carry around, and then that just becomes more expensive and more expensive for taxpayers.
Right.
So that was a really great job. In hindsight, I was, really engaging. It was constantly kind of coming into work, kind of figuring out a puzzle. But I think the big thing that made me want to switch is, right, you spend 4 years, you're kind of barely interacting with people other than the people on your own team or the people you interact with. And I really wanted something customer facing. So, and I had a degree in finance, had some political interest, and I came across a job at a company called Public Financial Management.
Okay.
So, they pretty much go by PFM, but full name is Public Financial Management. Yeah. And they pretty much work with any municipal government or any pretty much municipal, state, local government. It has to do with tax dollars.
Okay.
They can probably help you out, and they do a lot of pretty much any kind of full suite financial services for county governments. I actually got hired into their financial modeling division, which is a fancy way of saying, what does our budget look like 3, 5, 10 years from now?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, well, because that's not a concept associated with Carbon County government.
Yeah.
It's what does the budget look like right now today,
Absolutely.
This coming year. And it doesn't matter 2025, 2026, it's not even a thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I don't think people realize sometimes is, right, when you're making one decision, you can kind of visualize in your head like how that's going to impact you 3, 5, 10 years from now. 2 decisions, maybe you can kind of balance out 3. But then when you start talking everything that the county needs to decide and figure out for the planning in the future, it's like, 50, hundreds of things. Yeah. And then you just go back to throwing darts at a board again. And so what this really allowed us to do was really great experience, is seeing how these other governments, and I worked with county governments, but also water authorities, and different things, but really just how they went through to create a decision-making tool for them to decide and make the best decisions for their county, and
great.
how they could outline what does that mean for the salary impact, or all the different capital projects they want to see, kind of organizing and creating the impacts of 3, 5, 10 years for their capital plan. So it was just a lot of just hands-on experience, just going through all of that, and I got a lot of great experience working with other controllers, from county governments, and just it was really a valuable experience that I think is I was very lucky to have.
Well, no, it's interesting because you talk about, obviously going to Westchester, getting your degree in finance, did a little bit of language studying also there with some international travel, right, 4 months overseas. Then you went to JP Morgan, then you went to PFM. But I want to jump back here in just one moment after I reintroduce ourselves here to folks who might just be tuning in. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Thank you for joining me on Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm joined by Sam Lux. Sam is a candidate for Carbon County Controller. So he'll be one of the 2 options that you'll have on 7 November for the 7 November election, because we can expect probably within the next week, 2 weeks at the latest, you should see those requesting mail-in ballots. They should be in your box here, by the first week in October, about 30 days prior at the latest. So stand by for that. So again, this is Chris Lukasiewicz, Carbon County Commissioner, with candidate for controller in Carbon County, Sam Lux, and we're just having a conversation about Sam's background and his candidacy. And we're at the point of where we're just talking about his educational and professional background, his graduation from Westchester University in finance, working at JP Morgan, and then at a company, I'm going to use the acronym PFM, working at PFM, where he seemed to be mostly focused on enhancing a long-term planning, strategic planning, facilitating, enhancing decision-making for government agencies, government entities, county governments, to include county government. But I wanted to take you back to what you said about your parents owning the 5 and 10 in Jim Thorpe. What did you necessarily, or you might have gained from that experience in the realm of finance that either you continued to apply through your education and your professional experience, or just helped shape or influence you into the career field that you've taken, because it is related.
Yeah, absolutely. I think honestly, when you started saying that, I was like, man, why did I talk about how that tied in? Because it's definitely a huge pack, right? A big reason for me to getting into to finance as a major was I wanted to understand what my dad was talking about more often than not, right? About all the different finances of running a retail store and really understanding what's going on and how to how to better run the store, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to be able to track that bottom line, understand what are the things that go into impacting that bottom line, right? So what are the major things? What are the minor things? What do you need to focus on? What do you not need to focus on? And just kind of that challenge, I think, is something that is it's a never-ending puzzle, because everything's always shifting, the world is always moving, and when that happens, the everything that impacts the way that money comes in and out of the business changes, and you got to be ready to adapt. And so I think that just has always been something that's been interesting and challenging enough to keep your attention. I think that's a pretty good combination.
Okay, well let's start jumping into your candidacy and what. So let's go and I'm going to use the term. What was your call to service? What was there in your life? What was that moment where you said, I want to kind of do a pivot, change azimuth, and I want to get into county government, public service? Well, what was the impetus, the motivation to do that and to bring you where you are today on the cusp of your first general election, running for controller here in Carbon County?
It's been an interesting experience running. Something we'll definitely get into in a little bit, I'm sure. But I think really the impetus for me to be running for controller, one, I developed all these skills working at PFM. So, right, just really having exposure to how other county governments from all across the country are thinking and planning and making the most effective use of the tax dollars for their constituents, right? And it was just unbelievable experience. And so from there, I went and I started working at a software company where we were doing the same sort of financial planning, but for small software companies. And I was doing sales, so I was helping them deliver and explain their financial product, which I enjoyed. I liked it, but I got to the point where I was just on the phone working for abstract businesses in Silicon Valley and other random places, and it just felt so detached from what was actually happening in the community. And at the same time, I started coaching the Jim Thorpe High School tennis team, and it just felt so much more real to be here in Carbon County, see the kids just feeling everything here. So I wanted something. I didn't want to just walk away from all this, interesting and I think valuable experience that I had, but I wanted something that I could feel the impact daily. I wanted to make a difference in our community. As I mentioned earlier, I love Carbon County. I love everything about it. I love the people. I love the places, the nature. And so just being able to use those resources, having the opportunity to use those resources to make our county a better place, to hopefully, save Carbon County taxpayers money and help them have an efficient, effective government that's not wasting money. And obviously it's a big challenge. It's not something that you can just snap or make happen overnight. But I think I have the background. I think I have the passion for this community to make that happen and to really put in the work to make that difference. So that was really kind of the three-step process. Was I want to make a difference in our community. What skills do I have? This counts. The current controller isn't running again. And I really think I have. I don't want to go back into some soulless software job. So let's do this. And I have to give my partner Jen a huge credit.
Fair enough.
Where I was I was tepid. I was like, I want to do this, but I don't know if I want my face everywhere. And to be in front of everybody. But I think she was now that we're halfway through it, I don't care really what happens. I'm
Right.
really happy with the work that we've been doing, and I'm really happy she pushed me into it.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say push, but she,
Right, yeah.
but, really, motivated me and kind of gave me that confidence to kind of take the step forward and say, I can do this job, and here's why. And it's been really interesting ever since.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about not necessarily having someone to help boost you, maybe push you over that point where you made the decision to run, because I have to assume you assessed the political environment in Carbon County, and there has been a significant pendulum shift over about the last 8 years or so in Carbon County, and that has to do, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you were a Democrat, most of the row offices were held by Democrats. Now, that has completely flipped here in the county. The exception right now would probably be the coroner. One could argue it was or still is the sheriff, because he flipped from Democrat to Republican here, right before the primary, basically. I know it was before that, would have been November of last year, but it was a political decision. I can't necessarily say it was a decision based on beliefs or values. It may have been, but nonetheless, it's convenient for that switch. So what we're really seeing, Sam, right now, we're seeing 3 Republicans to 2 Democratic registered voters. So, I guess, I got to ask, what gives you the confidence that you'll be able to obtain victory given simply the numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a big difference. And it's something I was well aware of when I entered the race. And probably one of the reasons why I was a little bit tepid of getting into it, right? But I'm a firm believer, and I'm not going to change who I am for anybody else.
Good.
I'm running to be the controller because I believe I don't want to be a Republican controller or a Democrat controller. Sure. I want to be the Carbon County controller. And I really don't see my political affiliation to have any impact on this job at all. I don't see it factoring in the slightest. And so, but I know there's a big difference, and I think going in, I knew, and I still know that I've got to work 3, 4, 5 times harder than my opponent to make up that difference, right? Because not everyone in the county knows me, right? It's there's 60-some thousand people in the county, right? And there's just no way that they all know you, right? And you got to get your name out there and your face out there, and you got to work hard. And I just take the approach that that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try. I don't necessarily do this because I know I'm gonna win, but I know I can do the job, and I think I have in a really unique position to do a great job for this county. And we're going to put the effort in. I'm going to make my case to every Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, birthday party candidate in Carbon County, because I just think it's something that's, I just don't see how my political affiliation, because I'm not even strongly, just a strong political person who's, waving tons of political flags everywhere. I just really think I have the skills to do the job, and I want to do the job, and I want to get in there and be effective and put the work in. And I think knowing the people from Carbon County and everyone I've interacted with, they're receptive to that. They know.
Absolutely.
I think if you can get that message across to them and connect with them and just say, here's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I can do this job. I'm doing this because I think I can make a difference for you. I can, make sure that the county is effectively and efficiently using your tax dollars. I can simplify what's going on and help, I think the controller's office can get more information out about what the state of the Carbon County finances are. Right? When you go on the website, it's the budget. It's great that it's there, but I don't think any normal person is going through and diving through that budget that's on there. So being able to get high level numbers, right? What are we spending on salaries? And that should be something that's easy to access for any constituent who's interested. And kind of creating a financial health of the county is one of the things that I would love to do. Absolutely.
No, that's great. Let me tell you that once you get into office, and I can only speak for the last 3 years and 9 or 10 months, the political party doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Nor have I necessarily seen political ideologies matter once in office. I think where party matters is in elections, but party truly matters most in elections to low-informed voters.
Yeah.
Because voters who you or others have engaged with, those informed voters, I think at the end of the day, if they understand what's in the best interest of their county, they're going to truly vote for the best candidate, regardless, or at least downplaying the importance of party.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, once you get into county government, party doesn't matter. And I wish voters would better understand that, because we have a significant pool of individuals, very bright, intelligent individuals who would be great public servants that will never have a chance. And it could be a Democrat, it could be a Republican, or it could be the 6,000 or so independent, third party candidates and stuff like that. I love the fact about, looking at how we can make information available to the public. And I've always been a big advocate and proponent of that. I can tell you, I'm going to take you back as far as 2018, all the way up to today, or I'll say 2018, 2019, I only knew 2 citizens who looked at the budget. Jerry, from down on, I'll say Broadway, Jerry, and me. No one else. No one else, I'm telling you, and I was so glad when we were able to get it fully online and available. But again,
which is a step,
it's a step that doesn't make any more people that go in and dig into it and read it, but there should. It'd be great to be able to make it more available, digestible to the average citizen, because every penny in there, in one way or another, comes from taxpayer dollars, either directly or indirectly, either from property taxes, from state, federal taxes, whatever the case may be. So you're running for controller, but for Joe and Jane Q. Public, describe for the us average Joes, what is the controller at the county level? What does a controller do?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's honestly one of the most common questions I get when I say hi. I'm saying I'm running for controller. They're like, what does the controller do?
Right.
And I don't blame them. I think the classic joke is you control stuff, but it's the simplest way I like to describe it is the chief accountant for the county.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily the perfect description of the job, but I think that's kind of the quickest way to understand that. So anything that the county would be spending money on, I would be in charge of reporting that spending, tracking that spending against the budget, and then also working to put together the budget for the following year to make sure what departments have what to spend on what. And then tracking to make sure they're doing that effectively. So that's kind of the simplest kind of distilled down way, I think.
No, and that's good. And I've seen when people compare the controller to, let's say, private industry, a corporation, I often hear too, like a chief financial officer almost. And also they'll talk about some of the audit responsibilities and stuff like that. So, the controller, you handle accounts, budget. So what? What does it matter to me, Mr. Public?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I think is really commonly misunderstood. I think a really good controller will make a huge difference for Carbon County. That's why I'm running. But really being able to dive into the budget, like you mentioned, audit it, looking through what the county is spending, what they've spent money on, and understanding where they're wasting money. Where are the inefficiencies and ineffectiveness of the county government, and being able not just to know that and find that, but then being able to communicate that and report that to commissioners so that they can make better decisions, right? They can say, what are we doing here? Why are we spending money on this? They can cut that. That's a saving to taxpayers, right? If we move this around and change this, that's a savings to taxpayers. So being able to really dive in, understand where the money is being spent and why, really being able to find some of those departmental bloat, right? I mean, and this isn't just Carbon County. This is an organizational problem that I'm sure everyone's aware with. They use it or lose it, right? Every department's just trying to fill their budget, and if they don't need the money at the end of the year, they spend it. But guess what? That impacts taxpayers.
That's right.
So a good controller can really get out in front of that and kind of understand where the extra bloat is coming from, right? Because they can see that's not that doesn't track to what they were spending on last year, and why is that coming in now? And they can communicate that to the commissioners so they can be better informed when they're redoing the budget, right? And it's not to say that you want to starve all these departments of resources, because I'm a firm believer that the job of the controller isn't to be this penny-wise miser. It's to understand, and like I said, why I'm so interested in finances. Why are they spending the money, right? What is the use of it? Is there an effective use to this? Is this making a difference for the constituents and the people of Carbon County? Then great, we can figure out how to do that, right? And I think that's like another thing, like with the Carbon County, with the employees, right? You could be penny wise and not pay them, but then what are you doing, right? Because you're pound foolish, right? So having people who have jobs at the county that they're proud of, that they show up and they put in great work, isn't a waste of money. It saves taxpayer money, a lot of it. Because hiring somebody else to come in and relearn that job is expensive.
It's costly, retraining or onboarding, offboarding.
But to tie the whole thing in together, right? It's tough for the commissioners to make that decision currently, because what does that mean to the bottom line if we raise salaries or all these extra expenses that come on? It's frightening, right? If you can't actually visualize what that means to the county, that's frightening. And don't do it, right? Like, you don't want to set the county up into be and be financially irresponsible and just everybody gets a raise, right? So it's this huge balance, and I think that's what's so interesting and fascinating and challenging about the controller position is it's walking this tightrope of being able to provide the county with the resources it needs to provide the really important, valuable resources, from the judicial system to children and youth. There's all these great things that the county does for our community that I think sometimes goes unnoticed, and that's okay. That's kind of the government's the punching bag sometimes, but a lot of times they provide great resources. So walking that tight line to be able to show that they can do that, but while also being responsible and understanding that we owe the taxpayers responsibility of that we're going to be using their money appropriately. And I think that's why the controller's position is it is as vital as the commissioner's position. While they don't have the decision-making power that the commissioners have, I think the informational power that the controller can have and can provide is as effective as anything that's happening at the county.
Well, I think you hit upon, and it was right on the end where you really hit upon it, is, and all those things are great, and you hit upon on the end, it's the ability to communicate that, but not only to the decision makers, and this ties back to a little bit what you talked about a few minutes ago, actually, it's communicating it to the public so they can understand why decisions were made that impact positively or negatively their pocketbook. And I will tell you, county government does not have a public relations or a communications office and it does not do a good job of communicating, the why of decisions. And again, it creates a distrust, concern in the citizenry. So that was great. So, obviously a knowledge of numbers is important, but what other skills are important to be a good controller, do you think?
I mean, definitely the communication aspect. Right? I think there's not a job in the world that isn't improved with good communication. So I think being able to communicate what's going on and being able to deliver that messaging to the commissioners and to the department level heads, right? To be able to create an atmosphere where it's not this us versus them mentality of the departments where like they're fighting against each other for the piece of the resources, where they can communicate with each other and say, this year we don't necessarily need the funding, but we might need it next year. And I kind of have more of a balance between, just being able to communicate and get everyone on the same page, and really do some of the project management skills to get the to be effective. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So, the controller in Carbon County and in at least probably 60 of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania has some additional duties and responsibilities. We have about $85 million of a pension fund, goes out monthly to about 400 pensioners. That's injecting about a $500,000 significant responsibility.
Absolutely.
And how does your experience or background tie into having the capacity to manage such a large investment portfolio? Now, obviously, we have an investment firm that helps us make decisions on its management, but what in your background it helps you be prepared for basically leading up that retirement board or serving as its
absolutely. I mean,
secretary.
obviously, a portfolio of $80 million is something that is not something that should be left to one person, right? So there's definitely a team of people involved in making decisions for that, right? Because you work for the county all your life, you better make sure your money's there, right?
Right, yeah. When
and you're going to be able to collect that and then obviously use that around the county to make our county even better. So really just the experience I have in finance, so having a background in finance, working at PFM, I've seen and looked at a lot of the different wealth management strategies and portfolios, and I really think just having that knowledge will be able to make me be able to communicate with the consultants and the teams of financial advisors that are really managing and overseeing that, and then just having the empathy to understand how important that retirement is to so many people in Carbon County. It's not something to be messed with or take lightly, and just being able to approach that with the seriousness it deserves.
Sam, what's your familiarity with a couple other ancillary duties? I'm going to call them duties or responsibilities with the controller, such as salary board and prison board.
Yeah, absolutely. So just being on those boards, right? The salary board is such a critical one, right? That was the one that was getting all the news earlier this year. And just being able to, be a vote, right? That's one of the decision-making responsibilities that you do get as a controller, is having a say in what the salaries are. And I think that's something that I'm excited for, and being able to bring a pragmatic approach to one, understanding that it's not about pinching every penny when it comes to people and doing a job that we need them to do, but also balancing the taxpayer aspect of it, and being, a fiduciary for other people, for the taxpayer monies that we collect. And then on the prison board, just really, taking that same approach on why are things happening, what are things going on here, and just being able to be on that board and think through what are the decisions we're making, not just financially, but wholly, right? And I think that's why I loved getting into finance. I think that's why it's interesting, because it's not just understanding numbers, right? I'm not looking coldly at numbers, right? When you see, they spent X amount, or 10 million, you want to be able to say, why did we spend 10 million on this? And I think that's something that I would bring not just to the traditional responsibilities of the controller, but also to the salary board and the prison board, and then also the same thing with managing the retirement pension for the county as well.
No, that's good. Well, if you're just joining, let me just break here for a second. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and this evening on Carbon Matters live streaming, I'm joined by Controller candidate Sam Lux. We're in about the 3/4 point of our discussion here. We're talking about Sam's background and experience, what he would bring to the table as controller. I want to highly encourage everyone to vote. In this 7 November election. The controller is an extremely important position in county government. Its role in not simply working budget issues, but being on the salary board, the retirement board, the secretary of the retirement board, the prison board, all significant elements of county government that impacts citizens on a daily basis. So if you're just tuning in, thank you so much. So uniquely, the current controller isn't running for re-election. It's going to be a one-term controller. Neither yourself nor your opponent nor any potential individual who could pop up in the next couple weeks who might want to do a write-in or something of that nature is actually in the office. So it kind of doesn't allow those running to have a full grasp of the duties and responsibilities, nor necessarily to see the existing strength or weaknesses in the office. Are there any strength or weaknesses that you are aware of in the office that you think need to be addressed?
And that's a great question. I mean, I think you definitely made a strong point of it's really tough to see what's going on into the detail, especially from.
I got that. You can talk.
Especially from. You got it.
Yep.
It's really tough to see from the outside perspective of exactly what's going on.
Right.
I think, like I said, one of the weaknesses I mentioned before is really being able to communicate to the public what's going on with some of the stuff in there. And that's something that I think is responsibility of the team. I think that's, as the controller being elected, I think that's on them to be able to put together that information, organize that information, and be able to communicate that out.
Okay.
I think a few of the other challenges, I think, it's been an interesting time with COVID. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is I don't think the budgets have been as tight as they could have been. I think there was a lot of free money being floating around from the federal government during those COVID years, which made it not so much having to understand what are we operating with, what are the tax dollars coming in, what's the tax dollars going out. So I think that's another challenge from the controller's office. Obviously, that's not just a controller problem. Right. That's a broader county government level problem. But I think that's the broader county government problem that is the controller's the quarterback on, right? If it goes well, they get credit. If it doesn't go well, they take the blame, whether right or wrong. Yeah, that doesn't doesn't matter. That's kind of their burden to own. So there are a few things from the outside, but like you mentioned, there's so much that I can't see. Right. So it almost feels wrong to pass any sort of judgment on something that I'm just unaware of. No,
and that's good. But right here in front of me, these are not my Christmas cards getting ready to go out by any means. There's about 85 to 90 of these, and what these are pay stubs. Right? These are pay stubs, and this is how county government receives them in an envelope, printed out, hand delivered to county employees. Now I'm going to tell you one of the weaknesses. It's fully embracing the technology that's available. Myself, the former treasurer, really pushed hard to get electronic pay stubs. It's been now about 18 months ago where we finally succeeded in getting that capability in Tyler Financials. But you know what I just received this past week? 18 months after the capacity or capability to do that, and I'm telling the public, I received another paper pay stub. And you know what I expect I'm going to be receiving for the next 3 months? These same paper pay stubs, right? So I'm going to tell you one of the weaknesses is when you have the capability, the technology, not implementing it because it saves. One thing you will learn, Sam, as controller, every 2 weeks, fiscal data, and then HR is probably spending, and I'm going to guess 8, 16, 32, probably anywhere from 50 to 75 man hours doing timesheets. Paper timesheets. So we have, not only do we have paper pay stubs, we're still doing paper timesheets. It's just incredible. Just incredible deficiency that should have been corrected. Not simply should have been corrected in the last 3 years and 9 months, but it should have been corrected 8 years ago. So I'm giving you something as you start thinking about a potential plan of action. And when you walk in there on that first Tuesday in January after taking the oath of office, and that you're going to have some things that are going to need to be addressed quickly because there's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you do first, right? You don't come in and slash everything, and you're like, there's a new sheriff in town. That's the exact opposite of, I think, what someone who wants to do something effective and make a difference should do, right? You come in, you listen, you learn. That's the first thing you approach anything. You listen, you learn, and see what's going on. Why are they doing it, right? Like I mentioned before, all that experience I've had at JP Morgan with the process improvement, right? You ask, why are we doing this, right? Is there a better way to do this? And so being able to come in and ask those questions, and then also coming from the software space. Like I mentioned, I was working with a company where we were implementing software. and I was seeing from the end user, from the company's perspective,
Yeah.
what are some of the mistakes that the companies rolling it out are making,
Yeah.
right? And those challenges are
Yeah.
just the same for governments,
Yeah.
right? You rush it and you're not ready,
Yeah.
or you don't commit. You pay all this money to software, but then you're not going to commit the man hours to actually get up and get it running. So just having experience seeing that and seeing what's failed, I think will help me get a better understanding of what we can do
Right.
to be effective and not just waste everyone's time and give some poor employee a project that's doomed to fail. And it's not their fault, right? They're not being set up to succeed and really take this over and really make this the future of Carbon County.
Right.
So that's something I'm really excited for too, is being able to, bring that experience into the county,
Right.
to be able to set up some of these project management things
Yep.
to succeed, not just half-ass them because we know we have to do something. So we're going to show that we're trying, and then we just waste money, right? And so that's the last thing I want to do.
Is waste
and
money.
that's just
Right. No, that's great. You hit upon something, right? Taking your experience and background, bringing in those best practices from your experience, life experiences, your professional experiences, adapting them, or I would say adopting and adapting them to the unique environment, which is a county government. And one of the things, again, it just hit me as I think, there's probably no doubt in my mind, every person in that office probably has a couple good ideas of how that office could be 100%. More effective and more efficient. And there's nothing better than as a newly elected official who's taken over a department or an office, whatever the case may be, and listening to your employees or subordinates, listening to those you support, be it the row officers, department heads, the commissioners, whatever it is, and just trying to understand what are the issues, what are the challenges, what do they need a controller to do to make their life easier, better, make them more effective and responsive to citizen services.
I couldn't agree more. Right? Like, yes, I do have experience and I've seen the way other controllers do it. I'd be absolutely crazy to think that I know more than the first deputy or the second deputy or anybody who's been in that office for even the past 4 years, right?
Okay,
but let alone some of the people who've been there for 20 years.
That's right. Yeah.
So obviously, the first thing you do is you listen to them.
Right. Yeah.
They know better than anybody else, right?
Yep.
And so you bring a little bit, but sometimes you got to bring in your own fresh outside perspective.
That's right.
So you bounce it off them and you see how they react to different ideas.
Yeah.
You don't just force things on people who have put in a ton of work and have a ton of experience and know a whole lot about what's going on in the county and what the county's spending money on.
Right.
So of course, you'd be crazy not to listen to them.
Yeah.
That's the first and last thing, and the middle thing. You're always be listening.
Yep. And make no doubt, bureaucracies, technocrats are resistant to change.
Yeah, 100%.
And
there's going to be change. I know how to do this, right? And it's smart, right?
Change management, right?
And that's another one of the challenges with the controller's office, right? Is when you're dealing with all that money, you're paid not to be wrong.
Right.
And when you're paid not to be wrong, what you sacrifice is efficiency.
Right.
And so it's finding that balance of, okay, we need to be efficient, we need to save money, we need to have more lean processes.
Yeah.
But we can't sacrifice that for being wrong. Because the last thing you want to do is have $7 million and where is it? And why are we short $7 million? Or what are we doing? And so, like I said, it's like a lot of jobs, but I think really the controller is walking that tightrope of being able to balance that efficiency and saving money. And I think it's something just having the knowledge and having seen some of the challenges and pitfalls, I think it will help me and help the entire controller's office going forward to kind of walk that tightrope, not kind of walk that tightrope.
Right. No, that sounds great. Hey, if you're just tuning in, I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich. I'm joined by County Controller candidate Sam Lux, running for office. The 7 November election coming up. We're starting to wind down, probably in about our last 10 minutes or so here. We're running a little bit over time. We're going to lighten up a little bit. We spent about the last 45, 50 minutes, almost an hour, really talking about Sam's background, his experience, his knowledge of the position, duties, and responsibilities of controller, some of the the experiences, the knowledge that he would bring based upon, his life experiences. Being educated in finance at Westchester, working for J.P. Morgan for a handful of years, working for a company, PFM, that had regular engagements helping counties, government entities become more effective, more efficient in what they provide to the citizenry. But we're going to lighten it up a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit about finishing up on some campaign things, some election things that are coming up. Because about a week ago, I did receive a mailer here at the home from Sam. So I do want to hit on the mailer a little bit, ask him a couple questions.
Yeah,
because if you have the guts to put it on a card, you have to be able to answer the tough questions about what you put on there. But Sam, I know you were out at the Carbon County Fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things you did that was unique, a unique way to engage citizens, you had, if I recall, it was a chalkboard with kind of an outline of Carbon County.
Yep.
And what were you asking people to do there at the chalkboard?
Yeah, right. It's the Carbon County Fair, right? We're celebrating Carbon County, everything the county has to offer. So really, we wanted to understand, what do you love about Carbon County?
Okay.
So we had anybody who stopped by and was willing to talk to us.
Yeah.
I know political booths aren't the most fun to stop at.
Right. Yeah.
So we tried to make it a little more fun. We had some giveaways and and we had the chalkboard and it's amazing, right? I think I said what I love about the county, but you'd be surprised. That was pretty much what people love about the county. They love our community. That was by far the number one answer. What do you love about Carbon County? Was the community. And the second thing was nature. Right?
Really?
Just how beautiful our county is and how precious everything that we've got here. I mean, you've got the Lehigh Gorge. You've got all the Flagstaff. You've got the Appalachian Trail. You've got, Blue Mountain.
Right.
Blue Mountain. Yeah, we got Blue Mountain.
Blue Mountain. Yeah.
And you've got, all of it. I mean, all the area up by Weatherly and Hickory Run. It's just a gorgeous area that we're just so lucky to call home.
No, it's such an important element of our quality of life, and that's why it's so integral, so important for us to strike the right balance between development and retaining the environment, the natural beauty and environment of this area, which is so important to our quality of life.
Yeah.
On the
but one of the ones I want to call out, which made me laugh, was one of the ones more memorable comments on what do you love about Carbon County was, at least I don't have to spell Schuylkill all the time.
Right, yeah. We'd always forget that.
That was a little easier, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I like being from Carbon County. So I like that one. I adopted that one as my third reason about what I love about Carbon County.
I spent a year or so forgetting to put the L right after the Y there in Schuylkill County. Hey, lightening up and thinking, what are some of the favorite things you like to do right now? I know you're teaching at the high school. You do coach tennis. But what you yourself or with your partner do you like to do?
So I mean, we love to play tennis. So Jen Everett, she owns the tennis club out in Lehighton. If you've ever wanted to play tennis or pickleball, swing by the Valley Royale. So we're always there, improving that place, and that was a passion project for her. It was just really incredible to see this tennis club that was created for the community was sitting idle, and I'll never not be impressed with her coming home and saying and a vision that she called me. And not many people know this, but this is how we got reconnected. We knew each other when we were younger. She's from Lehighton, I'm from Jim Thorpe, and she called me and she said, I'm thinking of buying the old tennis club that we used to grow up playing at. Do you think I should do it? And I said, you're crazy. It doesn't make any sense. It will never work. And I am so happy to admit that I'm 100% wrong. She's crushing it. Every day she's just doing something more amazing than the next. And it's been awesome to see. So I know that was a little bit of a segue from what we love to do. That's a huge part of our time, right? All the people that come to the club, it's like, I don't want to use... There's like a really extended friend group. It's like so many people come through. You get to play tennis. You get to play pickleball. So a mixture of that. In the summer, I love swimming. So I love getting into the Lehigh. I love even when I can, I'll even go up to the beach at Mock Chunk. I love hiking up. One of my favorite places to hang out is just at Mount Pisgah in Jim Thorpe.
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll go up there and just lose 4 hours. And that's a great day spent. So, just like everyone else, it's really enjoying the nature of this county.
Yeah.
Is the number one thing I love to do. Even in the winter, I loved going up, sledding, hiking in the snow.
Yep.
I love checking out Glen and Oak in the winter.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
A little dangerous, a little slippery, but it's 100% worth it. I love being in the winter too. You can avoid the tourist crowds. It's still it's just overwhelmingly beautiful, and I don't think I'll ever just stop being amazed at how beautiful everything is.
And we're so fortunate. When I get up this morning at 5 to go out, and it was about 4:50 to go out walking and to see the moon coming over. Matter of fact, the moon was kind of just off of Pisgah, and stuff like that. It was right in between Pisgah and the Broad Mountain there and stuff like that. Just beautiful, even at 4:50 in the morning. So this came in the mail. What does the county controller do?
Yeah.
It was a good kind of succinct description of what a controller does.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very, very well done. I thought you also did a really good job on this kind of encapsulating your background and your experience. What specifically were you attempting to accomplish with this particular mailer that went out, this postcard?
Absolutely. So that was the first one that goes out. So if you got one, watch out. You're probably going to get two more.
Yeah.
But really, we just want to set up, do things 3 times, things in threes.
Yeah.
But the first one to get out there was, what does the controller do? It's often the question that we get asked.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's not, if you don't live and breathe financial analysis or accounting, you might not know, or you might have some vague idea. So we really wanted to get to the point of what it does, because if you're going to vote for it, you got to know what you're voting for, right? And so I just wanted to inform the people who are voting, what does the controller do, right? And why is it important? So I think that's, this is really what does the controller do, informing what it does. The next one, if you're so very lucky, you'll get why. Why is the good control really important to have, right? And I think that's kind of the segue, right? You got to understand what the duties of the job are. Why is it important? And then who's the right candidate?
Candidate for perfect.
And I think
really build.
That's the way to go about it. You can't really start from the candidate and go backwards, because you'll always just be biased, right?
Right.
So that's really what we're going for.
Okay, no, that's great. And I know on here you use the term "make a meaningful difference."
Yes.
And one of the things I learned from or was reinforced about you, I believe, in this last hour or so, that a meaningful difference is a measurable difference.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about setting a goal, a standard, which is measurable, and basically measuring yourself against whatever that metric is.
Absolutely. Because I think making a difference, to me, always, just by existing, we make a difference, right? Right. That's a pretty low bar to clear, right? Just because I say hi to someone, butterfly effect, they change their day. But really, a meaningful difference is the work that I am doing is changing. Yeah. The work that we are doing is making an impact that is positive, that is that can be identified. And I'll admit, not everything is always measurable, but that is identifiable and palpable, right?
Right.
You can see it.
I think on a good note, I was looking at some numbers here over the last couple days, and again, measuring against.
If it's positive, I don't know if I want to know.
I like the fact that although there are challenges with the 3-to-2 ratio, more or less, of Republicans to Democrats, that creates an issue when there's low informed or uninformed voters. I think you're making a really good effort to help ensure there's many more informed voters.
Yeah.
I saw in the primary you were definitely having a positive impact. I talked to individuals of both parties, and those who interacted with you, the feedback was really positive. And so that's somewhat anecdotal, but then I saw that play out in your strength, in areas in which you were strong in the primary. And again, we all know as candidates, as we run, there's areas where we show real strong, other places we show real, maybe not as strong. and stuff like that. But I thought you did real well there. And, one of the advantages you have is you actually, compared to your opponent, your particular party backed you stronger than your opponent's party did by a couple percentage points, and those, one vote can make a difference.
Absolutely.
So that was positive. The other thing is, the ballots are getting ready to be put in the mail for the mail-in ballots, and you will be number one on the ballot.
Yeah.
It'll be your name and then your opponents. And that is, there's a psychological phenomenon which says the first name is the one that catches individuals' attentions. And again, while we know you're not going to be successful in touching every voter who goes to the polls, it does give you a little bit of benefit for those low-informed voters as they look at the ballot and your name is on there. So I definitely see a tide that is rising, not simply because of some things you can't control, but I think importantly because of the things you can control, and that is voter outreach. So, congratulations on what I see as, at least up to this point, a really solid campaign. And it's all about, again, educating individuals of why the position's important, and who is the right person to make a difference in the lives of county residents when it comes to the position of controller. Sam, let me give you the last minute to speak directly to those who might be tuning in about why you are the candidate of choice for the position of controller, and that's how we'll finish up here tonight.
For sure. Well, thank you, Chris. First off, thank you so much for having me on. I couldn't appreciate it more. I'm just grateful to have a platform where I can speak in long form, right? It's better than a one, 2-sentence postcard, but I get it. People are busy. There's not a lot of time to expand on why you think you're qualified. And the other thing I want to just say before I kind of go into why, why I'm running and why I feel qualified to do this, but I just want to thank everybody who's helped me out and supported me so far throughout the campaign. I'll take any platform to say thank you again and again, right? With those postcards, there's no physical way I could have written 4,000 postcards and gotten them out. I'd still be writing them. In January. So that takes a whole team, and there's a whole bunch of people that I can't name all of them, but you've already heard some of them. My parents, Jen, obviously, and there's a lot of different people who've just been really, really, really helpful. So I just want to say thank you, and I couldn't appreciate your support more, and your belief in me that I can do this is overwhelming. And the reason that I believe that I can do this, and the reason that I'm even asking for your support, is just the experience. A lot of things that we talked about tonight, right? It's the experience that I have communicating and working with county controllers. It's the experience even outside of finance. On being able to communicate and deliver concepts and make processes efficient, and understanding software implementations at the county, updating the county's, not just updating, but being strategic and smart about what we update, when and how, is something that I've got experience that I can bring to the table. So, mixing all those things, and then just being, from Carbon County, loving everything about this county and the people here, I couldn't be more excited and more humbled for the opportunity to make a difference. And I'll keep working hard, right? I don't know if we'll win, like Chris mentioned. The numbers aren't necessarily in our favor, but that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this because I think I can make a difference. And and we'll keep trying. I'll keep trying to communicate a message on why I can do this, and we'll see how it goes. All right.
Well,
Chris,
best of luck to you, so Sam. I want to encourage everyone this 7 November. I'm going to tell you full transparency. I'm backing Sam Lux 110%, and it's based upon the research that I have done to ensure that I'm an informed voter and will only vote for the best individual for a particular position. So I want you to go out and do your research, continue to learn more about Sam, learn more about his opponent, or learn about his opponent, and then go and make an informed decision. But most importantly, go out and vote as an informed voter that's going to impact positively your life, that of your family, and that of your community. So I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich with County Controller candidate Sam Lux. We want to thank you all for joining us here tonight on Carbon Matters live streaming. Have a wonderful weekend that's right before us. Have a great night. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.